Boston, winter 2025. The chandeliers glowed over the grand hall, packed with lawyers, judges, and old family friends. Tonight was supposed to be historic, the Donovan law firm's 100th anniversary. I, Clara Donovan, 26 years old, sat in the middle row, hands trembling in my lap. All my life, I'd been told I wasn't enough. Too quiet, too soft, too female to carry the Donovan legacy. But my grandfather once whispered, "Clara, you're the only one with the mind for the law." And tonight, I thought my name would finally prove him right. The host stepped up to the podium, his voice echoing through the hall. "Congratulations to the official heir who will carry the Donovan legacy forward, Thomas Donovan." The room erupted in applause. My father stood, pride glowing on his face as he embraced my brother. Cameras flashed. Guests cheered. My name never appeared on the screen. No one spoke it. Not once. I froze. Last year, I was the one who drafted the case files that won this firm its biggest lawsuit in decades. Every argument, every detail was mine, and now, erased. From the stage, my brother looked at me with a smug smile that said it all. "You were never meant to belong here." And in that instant, I realized they weren't just stealing my work. They were erasing me from my own family's history. That night, after the applause died down and the guests drifted home, I slipped into my father's office. The smell of old leather and bourbon clung to the air. On his desk sat a stack of files, carelessly left open. My eyes froze on the top page. It was my grandfather's will, or at least their version of it. The signature looked familiar, but the words didn't. My name had been cleanly removed, replaced by my brother's. It read, "The sole heir and successor shall be Thomas Donovan." My stomach turned. I'd seen the original document years ago before my grandfather died. He had written it by hand with my name right there underlined. He had chosen me, and now they had rewritten his last wish. I didn't even hear the footsteps behind me until my father's voice cut through the silence. "You shouldn't be in here, Clara." I spun around, clutching the paper. "You forged it. You erased me." He didn't flinch, didn't even look ashamed. He just poured himself another glass of bourbon, took a slow sip, and said, almost casually, "You're not strong enough for this family, Clara. You never were. Thomas is the future. You'll be fine. You always are." My brother leaned against the doorframe, smirking. "Honestly, you should thank us. We saved you from embarrassing yourself." The room spun. My hands shook around the paper. This wasn't just betrayal. This was deliberate, calculated. They had stolen not only my work, but my blood right. And in that moment, something inside me hardened. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like crying. I felt like fighting. The memory reels started playing in my head, one frame after another, like evidence stacked against them. I was 12 the first time it happened. My father's firm had botched a land dispute case. I stayed up all night in the library, combing through statutes, scribbling notes in the margins of my textbooks. The next morning, I handed him my research. He used it in court and won. At dinner, he raised a glass and said, "To Thomas, our brilliant future lawyer." Thomas hadn't lifted a finger. At 16, when my mother got sick, it was me who learned how to file her insurance claims, me who argued with the hospital over her coverage. She called me her little warrior. But when she got better, my father told the family, Thomas handled everything like a man. And last year, the case that put Donovan and Sons back on the map, I drafted every motion, every brief, every word of cross-examination. I bled over that work. The jury ruled in our favor. Reporters asked my father how he did it. He smiled, patted Thomas on the back, and said, "My son is a genius." Every win I earned, they gifted to him. Every burden I carried, they shrugged off like it never happened. And like a fool, I told myself it was fine. That one day they would finally see me. That day never came. Sitting there, staring at my erased name in my grandfather's will, I realized the truth. They had been erasing me my entire life. This was just the final stroke of the pen. For 2 days, I barely slept. I kept replaying their faces, the smugness in my brother's grin, the cold finality in my father's voice. But anger is a strange thing. At first, it burns you alive. Then, if you let it, it hardens into something sharper, something usable. I remembered my grandfather's study, the place where he used to mentor me late at night. He always hid things in plain sight. Old law books, dusty binders, margins filled with notes. If he truly intended for me to inherit, maybe he'd left a trail. So I went back. The Donovan library smelled of leather and mothballs. I pulled volume after volume until one felt heavier than it should. Inside, taped to the back cover, was an envelope yellowed with age. My hands shook as I slid the paper out. There it was, my grandfather's original will. His handwriting slanted but clear. Clara Donovan will inherit 51% of Donovan and Sons. She is the only one with the judgment and integrity to carry it forward. The breath rushed out of me. Proof, undeniable, irrefutable proof. For the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. They thought they could erase me with forged signatures and courtroom bravado. But they had forgotten one thing. I wasn't just my father's daughter. I was my grandfather's heir, and I was done being silent. I didn't storm into their offices. I didn't scream. That's what they expected, an emotional outburst they could dismiss as childish. Instead, I went quiet. I scanned the original will, sealed it in a fireproof folder, and locked it in a safe deposit box. Then I made copies, one digital, one on paper, because I knew my family too well. They'd burn the truth if they got the chance. Next, I went digging. Emails, contracts, financial records. Every file I touched told the same story. Forged documents, backdated signatures, a trail of deceit leading straight to my father and brother. But I wasn't going to fight this battle alone. I reached out to one of my grandfather's old friends, Judge Marlowe, retired but still respected. He'd seen me studying at his knee when I was barely a teenager. When I showed him the will, his jaw tightened. "Clara," he said, "if you take this to court, it won't just bruise them, it'll bury them." I nodded. That's the point. And while my family paraded Thomas around as the future of Donovan and Sons, I built my case brick by brick. Witness statements, metadata from the forged files, a notarized affidavit from the bank clerk who confirmed the switch. Every day I smiled at them like nothing was wrong. Every night I sharpened my knife in silence, because when the moment came, I wasn't going to beg for my place in the family. I was going to prove they never had the power to take it from me. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and cold ambition. Reporters lined the back row, pens ready, cameras humming. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore, it was front-page news. My father sat at the defense table, his suit immaculate, his expression smug. My brother leaned back in his chair, arms crossed like the verdict had already been written in his favor. They thought this was a formality. They thought I'd break under pressure. When the judge called my name, I stood. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I approached the podium. My voice didn't shake. "Your Honor," I said, sliding a thick envelope across the bench, "this is the original will of my grandfather, James Donovan, handwritten, signed, untouched." The judge unfolded it carefully. The room went so quiet I could hear my brother's breath catch. There it was in my grandfather's handwriting. "Clara Donovan will inherit 51% of Donovan and Sons. She is the rightful successor." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. My father shot to his feet. "Forgery, this is a stunt." The judge's gavel slammed. "Sit down, Mr. Donovan." I didn't flinch. Instead, I clicked the remote in my hand. Behind me, the courtroom screen lit up with a slideshow, digital forensics reports, timestamp logs, notarized testimony. Line by line, it showed how my father and brother had doctored the will filed with the court. Every forged signature, every backdated entry, every lie. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras flashed. My brother's face drained of color. I turned toward them at last. "You didn't just try to erase me," I said, my voice steady. "You tried to erase his last wish, and today the world sees you for what you are." My father's fist slammed the table. "You've destroyed this family." I met his glare without blinking. "No, you destroyed it the moment you decided my name didn't matter." The gavel fell again. The judge's voice rang out. "This court recognizes the original will as valid. Clara Donovan is the rightful heir." In that instant, everything shifted. The dynasty they thought was theirs crumbled, and the silence I carried all my life turned into power. 1 year later, the Donovan name looked very different. The old brass sign outside the law firm had been replaced. Where it once read Donovan and Sons, it now gleamed in bold letters. Donovan Law, Clara Donovan, managing partner. Clients still walked through those doors, but they didn't come for my father's reputation or my brother's empty charm. They came because they trusted me, the daughter who had been erased, the lawyer they couldn't silence. My father and brother, they were busy fighting their own battles. Investigations into fraud and forgery dragged their names through the mud. The empire they built on lies collapsed under its own weight. Sometimes people ask if I feel guilty, if I regret exposing my own blood. I don't, because family isn't supposed to erase you. Family isn't supposed to steal your work, your future, your name, and when they do, they stop being family. On quiet evenings, I sit in my grandfather's old study, now my office. His portrait still hangs on the wall, eyes sharp, proud. I imagine him looking down at me not as the forgotten granddaughter, but as the heir he always knew I could be. I pick up my pen, sign my name across another case file, and let the weight of it sink in. Clara Donovan, the name they tried to erase, the name that survived, the name that rewrote the story.